Microphone.
Welcome to Two Parents.
And a microphone.
We're your two parents. Well, we're not your parents. We're the two parents.
The two parents. And this is the microphone.
And this is the microphone.
Yes.
Again, that's our qualifications.
Yes.
We are two parents and we have
a microphone.
And
it.
we're the host of the podcast. I'm Shante.
And I'm Chris. Shante, why don't you tell them what our conversation is today?
You're going to set me up for failure with this one, so I have to introduce it. Today we're going to talk about gender roles.
Gotcha. You don't mean like roles like you eat, right?
No, that would be a lot easier to talk about, though.
A lot easier.
I don't know where the gender would come in, though.
Right.
However, but yeah, gender roles in parenting, in society, in ideology and faith, and all of the things that it holds.
I can already feel the tension out there.
And I'm trying to be really careful of how I talk about this. And so I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk about what we've done.
We just need to have a conversation.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, because we're not the experts.
No.
We're telling you what we've done. You make your own decisions.
We're not gods or gurus.
We're not gods or gurus. I really like that. That's got to stick.
That's a good tagline.
But what have we done with gender roles in our family? What we've tried to do is to, in a lot of ways, steer clear of the perceived gender roles.
Right, yes.
The labeled gender roles of society. You know, we started this podcast off telling them that, like, the societal timelines that are put on you.
Right.
Like, that doesn't mean that you have to abide by every single thing. Because not everything works within your values, works within your situations, works within your families, right?
Because we don't know where they came from anyway.
You don't know. We don't know. You don't know. Maybe you live in a big city. Maybe you live in on a farm. You know, maybe you have a child that has special needs that 18 is not a time that they go off and explore the world. There are so many things.
So many different things.
And so we want it to break that to start with and say, hey, parents, you're doing great. We've learned that, maybe there's some idea of how our children should be progressing, but we're not going to take that as this hard and fast rule. And that's
if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of like how we did with this whole idea of gender roles in our family. We started at a very young age having our children.
Right. So we have a boy and a girl.
We have a boy and a girl. Right. Yeah.
Start there.
And doing just the things that they enjoy.
Yep.
It wasn't, no, you can't do that because that's a girl's task, or, that's what girls do. And it wasn't, no, you can't do that because that's what boys do.
Yep.
And our daughter was very athletic, is very athletic.
Yep.
She is not one that ever really dressed up. There's there was a time that she went through a little princess phase, but it wasn't a major thing in her life.
Real rough and tumble.
And actually, you know what she gave? I haven't shared this with you. I'm going to share it with you and everybody else at the same time.
This is an exclusive, everybody.
We were talking the other day because she's now 17, and we were talking about parenting and, like, did we screw you up? That basically
one of those conversations.
That was basically the conversation.
Yeah.
And she says to me, "What are you talking about? I had an amazing childhood. I was a princess and a ninja." That was her words to me.
It's a great perspective.
And so that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Is like we did
say that right. High five.
We did that. Yes.
Wow.
We didn't say no, you can't dress up as a ninja because you're a girl.
Yeah, it's what boys do.
And we didn't tell our son that he couldn't play with stuffed animals because it's what a girl did. We just allowed them to do the things they enjoyed.
Yep.
And we really hindered people from
calling
our daughter a tomboy.
Yep.
I would, and there's nothing wrong with it. I know we say that, we refer to ourselves that way. I would have said I was a tomboy growing up, but what I knew what I felt like, what I felt like I was up against in culture was this whole identity crisis. And I don't want her to think because she likes something that she's a boy, and I don't want him to think because he doesn't like that then he must be a girl. You are individuals who have individual desires, and so I really ask people, like, please don't say she's a tomboy. She's
Right.
a strong, independent girl who enjoys sports and playing outdoors. And
Yep.
that's okay.
Yep.
And that's how we raised them, right? We were like, this is what we notice about you.
Yeah.
And so we joke with our daughter a lot of times, she's going to need a sensitive man to come alongside of her,
Yeah.
to be a husband, raise a family, because she's not.
Right.
Now, our son, on the other hand, he is sensitive, he's emotional, he's creative, and he might need more of a strong woman that, not that he can't do some of the things, but he just really doesn't have the desire to necessarily, like, work with tools and do, like, he can. He'll help us if, he needs it.
Yeah. His ability, but not a lot of desire.
When we were teaching our kids to change the oil in their car, and yes, we did that. Our daughter was the one most interested.
Yep.
As a teenager, I was the most interested. I remember my dad is a Mr. Fix-It, hands-on with everything, and he taught me a lot of things. Like, we replaced, like, the head of my engine. I mean, I was in under the hood, the head gasket. Yeah, I was under the hood of the car, like, in grease, everything. I enjoyed that because I like to work with my hands, and I like to see a task completed. And so I think having that upbringing and knowing I enjoyed those kind of things, but it didn't make me less of a woman.
Right.
It empowered me to know, like, if my daughter's like that, I'm going to champion that in her, and I'm not going to force her to be something that she's not.
Right.
And I think that was one of the things we did well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Let them be who we felt God created them to be.
Right. And I'm not going to linger on this point very long, but one thing I wanted was that we were able to speak the truth into them about, like you said, who God wanted them to be, instead of the world defining it because they liked a certain thing.
Right.
To be really honest, their sexuality could have come into question if somebody was just looking on the outside.
Right.
Because they could have said, well, you don't do girl things. You must be a boy. Or you must, you want to be a boy. You're not doing boy things. Like, you like music and you're playing the piano.
Right.
You're creating things and you're a girl. And that was one thing that I did not want our children coming up against. I wanted them to be strong in their identities as they were created. And I think that sometimes, and I don't believe that it is this malicious thing, but I think sometimes us sticking to these stigmas of what this gender or that gender should do can cause a lot of confusion.
Right. Yeah, and I've always taken it back to, and I haven't always had this view, it was something I saw a while back and have, just to use a character from the Bible, he's one of the heroes, one of the guys that everyone looks to, David. He was, what you would consider, I don't know what you would consider, I don't even know if that's a term, but, he was kind of the man's man.
Right.
He was a hunter-gatherer, he was their fiercest warrior, but this guy also played the harp.
Right.
So,
and you see emotion. He has emotion, right?
Yep. He had a best friend. They were very, very affectionate towards each other. So, from a outward standpoint, you would look at that as those things don't work together. You're either the mighty warrior or either dude playing the harp.
Right. Exactly.
But he was both.
Right. Like our daughter was the princess and the ninja.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I do think that's important. I think, like, giving our children a sense of embracing who they are, right?
Yep.
Without me telling them who they have to be, based on whether they're a male or a female, I think is super important.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like, we just want to go back to this, like, historical context of what we know, just in the U.S., like, whatever.
Sure.
Raised as a lot of times, like, the women were in the kitchen, the men were working, that's like back in, again, we're not the experts.
No.
I don't have all my history together here.
No.
But I know that was like, that's what we had seen a lot of times. And I know we're in 2023 now, and, like, we have broken beyond that. But I do think that some of that is still what binds us today.
Yep.
Like that's still like kind of woven in to a society, and it's men should do this and women should do that. But the one thing that made me question that so much was, wait a minute, a lot of the famous chefs are men.
Are dudes. That's right.
And I'm going, if the woman's place was in the kitchen, why are these men making lots of money, making TV shows, driving around the country trying to find the best diner or dive?
Right.
They're making a buttload of money, eating food. And like, so I knew like that's not right. And again, this is not what we're saying you have to think. This is a conversation about us, our family.
A conversation we've had. We're just letting you in on it.
And, I mean, we do, again, let our faith guide things. But I think that's also gotten mixed up sometimes. Because it's like, not going to get into it, but biblically we've assigned the male role, the female role. And I think that we haven't done enough research on really what the intention is of that. That we have restricted people to do things that maybe they were never created to do. Correct. I'll just say it like that. Yeah. Not going to get into the ideology or the theology of it, but I knew for us it was one of those values for our family of our children are going to be able to put their hands at the things that interest them. Yep. And we are going to do our best to guide them through that. Yep. And we have had open conversations about identity issues. We've had open conversation about gender roles. Yep. We have let them know that we put certain things in place and we guarded them and allowed them to do things and made sure comments weren't made. That's a girl's thing or that's a boy's thing. Sure. So that they could develop into who they were created to be. The interests and the passions they had without all of this confusion of, well, man, if that's a girl's thing, am I a girl? Right. That was something I did
God make a mistake or something like that?
Yeah, because here's this idea is, like, our son, like, when he was younger, he doesn't do this anymore, but, like, when he was younger, like, he and our daughter, they would play with their stuffed animals, and it was, like, house and stuff like that. There's something beautiful about that because our hopes are one day that he finds himself as a father. Yep. Well, he needs to be nurturing and compassionate to be able to do that, right? And then, you know, our daughter is looking at going into construction management, you know, as a career. She loves it. She loves hands-on. She loves being physical and active. And that's a good thing for her to know how things work. Because even though our society has progressed so much, as a woman that knows how things work and has this independence, maybe she wouldn't be taken advantage of in certain situations, right? And so we didn't mind having those conversations or even rubbing up against, like, maybe the Christian community sometimes in that too. Like, it was like, hey, this is our convictions. This is how we're doing things. And because we believe that we're not gods and we're not gurus.
Neither.
And so we're going to let this child develop as created. And we're going to do our best to guide them in that. Yeah, definitely. So I know this is not one of our more lighthearted subjects. It is a little bit deeper, but I think it's so important.
It is. 100%.
It is so important. I would love to hear comments from the audience.
Love to hear your thoughts. No matter what it is, no matter what side of the spectrum you fall in, we want to have a conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Right. What you guys think. How maybe this has affected you over time, maybe.
Right, yeah.
What your thoughts are as a parent when it comes to that. Questions you might have as a parent. Just whatever. Put it in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it.
Right, yeah. And I think also know when you put it in the comments or you reach out to us, don't expect the expert answer. I know I feel like I say that all the time, but I just want you to understand, like, we are having a conversation. Yes. That is what we're doing. But now, since we chose that path for our children, right? Or for our family, per se. Because I think even we don't...
Right.
We probably don't follow the normal gender roles.
No, because you love having a hammer.
Yeah.
And love doing things and construction and, things like that. We've remodeled houses. You've been taking the lead a lot in there. I've never been afraid to get in there and wash dishes or, get in there and help cook and things like that. And I've been on purpose.
Right.
Because I don't think that's a gender role thing. That's just, hey, this is all part of our house and, thing that we do.
Right. I read a book one time, and I think the title of it is We Should All Be Feminist. And, I don't agree with 100% of anything that I read or hear. I will just say that. Mm-hmm. But there was a line in the book where it was in, I'm not going to try to state the place because I don't remember it, but I do know it wasn't the U.S. So it was another country. Mm-hmm. And the woman who was writing it, she was recalling how one of the women in her life handled situations. And it was she... As a child, she had a sibling who was a brother. Mm-hmm. And so the women mentors of the life, they did not allow, even though it was custom in their country that the girls cooked, she did not let the son not learn to cook. And she told him, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't teach you how to cook because you would have to depend on something that sustained your life by somebody else's hand. And I thought that was so powerful.
That's awesome.
That was just so powerful of, like, we do need to know how to do these things. Sure. Like, these are just base level, know how to feed myself, like, know how to cook for myself, know how to clean, know how to, maybe fix something or something like that. And so, I when I read that, it kind of was like, that's why we did the things we did, But what do you think that us making this decision in our family, what do you think that did for our kids? Did it help them? Did it hurt them? Like, now that we're at 18, 17,
right.
What is that? What does that
I mean, I think it helped them be more comfortable in who they are. Okay. It took away stigmas, I think, for them to just kind of explore what their passions might be. Yeah. Okay. They didn't necessarily have boundaries when it came to that, which I think is good. Yeah. Because it allowed them to kind of just dream big dreams. It allowed them to kind of, like I said, explore more without boundaries, who they feel God has created them to be. Right, yeah. And allow them to do that. So, and I think that's helped them be more healthy and more comfortable in who they are. Yeah. Because I know both of them do feel comfortable in who they are. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's because we've allowed them to kind of explore that without boundaries. Yeah. There hasn't been this fear of, I can't feel this way because of this societal norm, this thing that people say I should or shouldn't feel. So in that aspect, and I think it's probably cut down on, at least in that aspect, any anxieties they might feel about as they've been growing up and as they start becoming who they are and who God's created them to be. There hasn't been that, at least in that aspect, I think some second guessing of, I feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. Right. Because I am, a boy or a girl. Right. And like our son will sit down, like he taught himself, used YouTube. Yep. People do use YouTube as learners. He used YouTube and learn piano and never wanted to be and guitar and he never wanted, I think I used piano because it would have been more of the feminine thing, I think. Not that there's, again, that's the other thing, like there's these master piano players that are not women. But I remember, like, he started off one hand. Yeah. Like, within a week, he's, like, playing two hands. Yep. No formal training. And I'm going, this is a gift. Like, we would have, like, taken that away from him if we were like, that's what, your sister's going to do that. Right. Like, you're going to, we would have been, as he's playing the piano, just shoving a football underneath his fingers going, why don't you play on that right there or something like that.
And it would have, like, taken something that's so impressive about him because he does enjoy, like, music scores, classical music. And the beautiful thing is he's a little more high strung than our daughter, but it's that music. It's that
Yeah.
classical music without the words that allows him to kind of be at peace, that frees him. So it's like, here's who he is. Here is this interest, and it comes together, and it brings some balance, you know,
Right.
where our daughter is, she is a little more of a free spirit, but still very like structured.
Yeah.
And so that building something, like she's not super creative of let me just
Right.
do something out of it, but if I do something tasked, I still created something.
Yep.
So it gives her this kind of creativity that is still very structured. And so I think that that's, like you said, it allowed them to do things without these boundaries of
Right.
some kind of societal norm or stigma.
Right, and I guess to more elaborate on it, it just allowed them more to be okay to be themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
In regards to their likes, their dislikes, their passions, things they want to pursue. I don't think that they had boundaries when it came to that.
Right, I agree with
Other
that.
than maybe if there was any physical limitations.
Right, yeah.
That they knew that had nothing to do with real gender.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that, too, what it does, even for a society, is as they become adults and they walk in this world, they're still going to have to discover things. But they're not going to have to spend as much time knowing what they like and what they don't like.
Right, yep.
And even when they come into relationships and, you know, finding a lifelong partner and things like that, they're going to know their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yep.
And they're going to be able to throw that out there like, hey, this is what I like to do. This is the housework that I'm okay with. This is the housework that I'm not going to lift a finger on.
Sure.
Or, you know, maybe it's like, oh, you know, our son has found somebody that wants to work and he's okay working from home and he's great with kids, you know, whatever
Sure.
that might
Yep.
be, that they know these things a little bit better going into adulthood. Not that they know it perfectly. Like, again, we've said, I mean, we've probably screwed them up in multiple places.
Not gods or gurus.
And this is one of the things that I feel like we did okay on.
I feel like we need to have a little disclaimer that pops up that says not gods or gurus.
I think that's great. Maybe you can work on that.
I got it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that is that's it.
Yeah.
So I mean, we would, again, like he said earlier, love to hear from you guys. Your
Let us know your
thoughts,
feedback.
comments.
Yeah.
Hopefully this has been helpful at some level, that maybe it triggers something in you to kind of let your kids explore, because they're not making decisions about who they are going to forever be right now. They're learning what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you guys. If you like the video, don't forget to throw us a like. Subscribe so you can get more of our content, more of our videos. And once again, join the conversation. That wasn't that bad.
That was good.
Cue the music.
Two parents and a microphone.